These are the worst picks in fantasy football. If you want to lose your money, end your league, pick these players. Welcome, football fans, to my must-avoid players for 2025. Like the video, get in the comments, and let me know which player are you avoiding like the plague in 2025. Let's kick it off with the early round player, the first round player that I'm avoiding most. And that is Ashton Jeanty, the superstar, the potentially generational running back prospect of the Las Vegas Raiders. Ashton Jeanty is RB5, going 10th or 11th overall. The reason I don't like Jeanty, I don't love the Raiders as a team this year. And when you compare Ashton Jeanty's situation to Bijan Robinson's, to Jahmyr Gibbs, to Christian McCaffrey's, to Derrick Henry's, even to Bucky Irving, Chase Brown, do you see correlation? He's on a worse team. He's on a worse offense than all of them, period. And I don't know what Ashton Jeanty is in the NFL, and I don't know what his role is in the NFL. I know Chase Brown's role. I know Derrick Henry's role. And I definitely know the role of Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins, Puka Nacua, players that I could pick over Ashton Jeanty where he is being selected. I'm not sure that the ceiling is all that high for him as a pass catcher. He can do it, but I don't think he's some spectacular pass-catching Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Alvin Kamara type. And honestly, like in terms of running the football, what would be a good season for Ashton Jeanty? Like the year that Josh Jacobs had last year, like what we've already seen from Josh Jacobs. So I just feel like he is very, very pricey for a player that's not the alpha guy in his offense. That's Brock Bowers, who's a guy that's never proven it, who's a guy behind a mid-offensive line with a mid-situation. When you could take guys that we know that are locked and loaded into a certain amount of touches, into a certain percentage of a good offense, and you could take some of those guys a little bit later. Not only that, but there are already a little bit of concerns about Jeanty in terms of his preseason work. He only averaged 3.1 yards per carry on 12 preseason carries. I know that's only a small sample size, and it's just the preseason, but that could be a look at what we're looking at for the run game of the Raiders this year. Plus, I think they're going to be trailing in a lot of games. Their defense sucks. I think they're going to have to throw the ball with Geno Smith. So he's just a guy that I don't really want to touch when I could just draft Nico Collins, or I could draft Puka Nacua, or I could draft Chase Brown or Bucky in the second round. Like, I don't want to touch Ashton Jeanty where he is being picked. Maybe next year. We'll see. Devon Achane, for me, is a must stay away. I mean, he is being drafted as the RB7, and he is one of fantasy analysts' favorite players because he is seen as a super explosive running back that catches a ton of passes. And he's a little bit of a scam in that regard in PPR format. So if you want to take him in PPR leagues in the second round, I'd be okay with that. Okay, but I'm just warning you, there are a lot of red flags about Achane. A lot of red flags about Miami. First of all, they can't control their culture. They can't control Tyreek Hill. And there's so many negatives here. Like the production tied to Tua. Last year, Devon Achane without Tua was not good. He was barely startable in fantasy leagues. Tua is always injured. Are we going to rely on him for an entire season when we're in our fantasy playoffs? We're going to have Zach Wilson as his quarterback? Our RB1's quarterback, Zach Wilson? Quinn Ewers? That's what we're relying on? One of the worst offensive lines in football with probably the worst tackle situation in the NFL for a team that wants to run the ball outside the tackles or wide. Mike McDaniel is on the hot seat. He could very well be fired. This team is going to go downhill. So I just want nothing to do in the first or second round with a player on such a volatile team with such a volatile situation, from the quarterback to the coach to the offensive line. Like, yes, he has volume and upside as a PPR player, but I just feel like the risk is immense, especially considering he's already injured. He has a calf injury entering week 1, so I hate the pick where he is going. Breece Hall is another pick that I have not made once throughout the offseason in best ball. I mean, not one time. He is the RB15 right now and going 40th overall. First of all, I think Breece Hall is a little bit of an overrated player. He was 46th in PFF grade last year. Okay? He did not play well last year and arguably was the second best running back on his team last year. Braylon Allen has been getting a lot of smoke this offseason from Aaron Glenn and this new coaching staff and new regime that did not draft Hall, that have no long-term ties to Breece Hall. Okay? They could easily go with the 21-year-old massive running back to be their lead ball carrier for the future. And that could start this year. Okay? This might even be a 3 running back committee on one of the worst offenses in the NFL, with one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. And nonetheless, that quarterback, Justin Fields, does not throw the ball to the running back. He just runs. So you're not getting the swing passes. You're not getting the quick outlets that Aaron Rodgers gave him. And he did not play well last year, and he has legitimate competition behind him. And he's not going to score touchdowns because he's not on a good offense. There's just nothing I like about this. Like, there's so many other alternatives in that range. Give me Kenneth Walker all day long. Better scheme, better offense, better team, playing from ahead, wanting to run the ball. So the Jets are going to want to run the ball a lot. And I understand that point. But at the same time, it's going to be a 1A, 1B committee, and he's not going to have the receiving volume or the touchdown upside that he once had. Marvin Harrison Jr., I can't get behind him being drafted where he's being drafted. I understand that he was like a late first round, early second round pick last year. And where he's being picked now is a bit of a value in comparison to his rookie season. But in his rookie season, what did he prove? He proved that he was the wide receiver 44 in points per game. He was literally lower than Quentin Johnston, who can't catch. I'm surprised Quentin Johnston caught enough passes to be ahead of him. He was also wide receiver 30 overall last year. He wasn't even a wide receiver 2. Like, come on. That we're drafting him as wide receiver 18 with the same quarterback and the same offense that's going to run the ball. 41st overall. When you could get Terry McLaurin, who I understand is even holding out, but he was second in the NFL in touchdowns last year with a legitimate top 5 quarterback in Jaden Daniels. You could get him. You could get Cortland Sutton. You could get Travion Henderson. You could wait for George Pickens, wait for Jamison Williams, wait for those guys, instead of picking Marvin Harrison with the perceived upside of being a generational prospect that's the number 1 receiver in his offense, but he has zero chemistry with his quarterback. And all he did this offseason was bulk up, and nobody's talked about him since. I don't even know why he bulked up. He's too slow. Next, Alvin Kamara is one of the worst picks in fantasy football. He's the RB17 currently off the board, 41st overall. I'd way rather have James Conner. James Conner is a better player straight up than Alvin Kamara. Better runner of the football for sure, no doubt about it. And he's in a better offense that was second in the NFL in yards per carry last year, with a better run scheme on a better team. Alvin Kamara with a better quarterback, Kyler Murray. The Saints, they have what? Tyler Shuck, Spencer Rattler, a middling offensive line. And you think about it like this pick is a pure volume play, is Kamara. He's an old school dead zone running back pick. He's 30 years old. He's past his prime. His quarterback situation is horrible. And what if Kellen Moore simply doesn't want to give him the ball every other play like the past offensive coordinators have? What if they want to funnel the ball to the younger, more explosive Chris Olave or Rashid Shaheed? They just brought in Vele at slot receiver. I don't see the upside with this pick whatsoever. It is a pure floor play, and I hate those picks in fantasy football. DJ Moore is also a terrible pick as the wide receiver 22, 54th overall. There is a lot of target competition in Chicago. Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, Zacchaeus, Swift, Kmet. There's a lot of competition here. A lot of his actual production last year came on screens in a different offense, for a different coordinator, for a different regime. Ben Johnson did not trade for DJ Moore. He did not draft DJ Moore. Who did he draft? Colston Loveland. Who did he draft? Luther Burden. He has no financial or long-term ties to DJ Moore. And Caleb sucks. Let's just be honest, Caleb is not good. The offense is good, the infrastructure is good. But Rome Odunze is expected to be their number one this year or take that step forward. And they're not being drafted that way. DJ Moore is being drafted as the number one right now. And you could easily see the manufactured touches going to a player like Luther Burden in this offense. You could easily see more targets being funneled towards Colston Loveland, who was their first round pick this year. In an offense that I think is going to be generally overrated, and each guy's going to eat into each other's pie, DJ Moore was wide receiver 67 in yards per route run last year. That was unspectacular. He had zero chemistry with Caleb Williams. So I think he's going downhill. I think the other guys around him are going up the hill. And I think the offense is overrated. So that's why DJ Moore is a stay away. Sam Laporta is also a stay away at his price. He's the tight end 4, 59th overall. I like Sam Laporta as a player, but he also has a ton of competition. He is without a doubt the 4th most dynamic player on his offense. On his own offense. Gibbs, Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra. Laporta's the 4th most dynamic player on his own offense. Why should Detroit feature him like Trey McBride or Brock Bowers or even George Kittle? Why? They shouldn't. Now, Laporta does go, 2 rounds lower than George Kittle, who's the 3rd tight end, and Laporta's in that dead zone of the 4th tight end. But I'd just rather wait. Like, he was literally the tight end 8 in points per game last year. I could get Mark Andrews a few rounds after. I could take a chance on Warren. I could go with a PPR option like Njoku or Ferguson later on. I like Tucker Kraft a lot, who's basically a more realistic chance of being the number one in his offense than Laporta is in his offense, right? So I like Laporta. I just feel like he's totally mispriced because the ceiling is not there for him whatsoever. Next, DeAndre Swift. Another Bear. Running back 22, 61st overall. He's a veteran holdover who could easily be replaced because he's not very good at his job. DeAndre Swift is the classic veteran running back that you shouldn't take. He's not that good, first of all. Like, he was 49th in PFF grade last year, 57th, or 52nd, sorry, not 57th, but 52nd in yards after contact per rush. He's not a very good runner. He's an effective screen player. He's a pretty good receiver. And he's dynamic when he gets the ball outside the tackles. But they drafted a running back who's looked pretty good in training camp. Ben Johnson has drafted Colston Loveland. He's drafted Luther Burden. There's less of a want to get those manufactured screens and touches to DeAndre Swift as opposed to those other players. He actually had DeAndre Swift in Detroit, did Ben Johnson, and he didn't feature him. So there's past history between the two. And this is a committee history also from Detroit as well. He's not Jahmyr Gibbs. So I feel like Swift is just an overrated player, and overrated because he's a starting running back in theory. But I would never take him in fantasy. David Montgomery is another player that I would never take this year. He's running back 23, going right after DeAndre Swift at 62nd overall. I think this might be the year that Monty gets phased out of the Lions offense. I think there's going to be more Gibbs. I think there's going to be more Jamison Williams. I think there's going to be less of Laporta, less of Montgomery. And I don't see the upside with this pick whatsoever. The only upside would be is if Gibbs gets injured. That's the only upside, right? He's very touchdown dependent, and he's not a great pass catcher. He had 775 rushing yards, which is not exactly phenomenal last year, but he had 12 touchdowns. So he's extremely reliant on those touchdowns. What if more touchdowns go to Jamison or more to Laporta this year or more to Gibbs? Like, I don't know. He's 28 years old. He's not nearly as good as Gibbs. They could easily just treat him like Tyler Algier to Bijan Robinson. Like, who's telling us? Like, Montgomery could completely become a backup for all we know with a new offensive coordinator and a new play caller. So there's alternatives in other situations that I think are more dynamic, that have more pass catching appeal. Guys like Aaron Jones, who are seen similarly to David Montgomery, that go after David Montgomery. I like him because he's more dynamic and he has more pass catching appeal. In PPR leagues, which I play in, I think that's more appealing. Tyrone Tracy, who's the lead back in his offense, who's young, who's explosive. Give me Tyrone Tracy later on, right? So I'd rather have those players as opposed to Dave Montgomery. Even Tony Pollard, who I should have mentioned when I talked about Swift, he's a great option too, who just goes, I believe, a little bit behind that Swift and Montgomery. I would take Tony Pollard outright over those guys easily, without question. With an improved offensive line in Tennessee, with an improved quarterback in Tennessee, Tony Pollard is a better player than both those guys, in my opinion. And the 10th stay away player of 2025 is Baker Mayfield, the quarterback that I would not draft at his price. QB7. Now, even if I think he's QB7 in real life, I don't think he's QB7 in fantasy entering 2025 at 72nd overall. He has Chris Godwin injured, and we don't know when he's coming back. Tristan Wirfs, the best left tackle, especially as a pass blocker in the NFL, injured early in the year. Mike Evans is very, very old at this point and could fall off, but I'm not going to say that he will. I'm just saying that he could get injured. There's things that can happen there, but he's already without Godwin. And I know that Emeka Egbuka was drafted, but he also lost Liam Cohen, who's seen as one of the best play callers by more than just me, but many people that watch the NFL. He lost one of the best offensive coordinators in football. What's the chances that Baker Mayfield throws up 41 touchdowns again this year? It's probably pretty unlikely. I like Baker Mayfield. He'll probably put up 30 plus, but 41 is asking for a lot, right? QB7 feels like his ceiling, and I just don't want to draft a pocket passer at his ceiling. I'd rather wait a few rounds, like 30 picks later, and pick Dak Prescott, who's going to be constantly trailing in games, putting up garbage points, throwing the ball a ton with no running game, and he's got CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. He'll probably put up a ton of touchdowns and a ton of yards. And for fantasy, that's fantastic. I don't know. Even Baker's defense could be better this year. So it might actually, take pressure off of him from having to chuck the ball as much as he did. Okay? And my honorable mention for a guy that I would not draft is Cam Skattebo, running back 37, 111th overall. Right? He's a white running back who was good in college. That's why he's getting drafted where he's getting drafted. He's not getting starting snaps. Tyrone Tracy's the guy. I'd rather have Ramondre Stevenson. I'd rather have Austin Eckler in committees. Guys that are going to get more opportunities. Stevenson on early downs. Eckler as a pass catcher. Skattebo's a backup. He's not actually a threat to start like people think he is. So those are the players that I would stay away from in fantasy in 2025. Thank you for watching. Gronk spike the like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this new Money Mitch channel. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.